Hey guys, thanks for joining in here with Walking with Weaver. Um, I didn't know what else to call this channel or these videos other than Walking with Weaver because honestly, doing a lot of walking. Um, the reason for this is I figure there's a lot of people out there like me that as we get older, um, we become out of shape. We become used to a certain way of life and we get out of shape. And I know, speaking for myself, I'm a little bit embarrassed about how heavy I've become and how out of shape I am, honestly. Um, so I decided to do something about it, but I'm not somebody that can just, get up and exercise just because. I've got to have an end goal. My end goal is in February, and this all started back in August. In February, I will be competing in a 100-mile trail race. So that's the end goal I had to have. And so basically, I'm going from 0 to 100. And when I started, this is not an exaggeration. I could not run a quarter of a mile without stopping, and it's yes, that's embarrassing to say, but now it's out there, and I shouldn't even say run. I call what I do a fat man shuffle. I even had my youngest son tell me that the pace that I go, it's too slow for him to jog, but it's too fast for him to walk. So, it is what it is. That's the pace I go at. When I do my fat man shuffle, it is painful. My knees hurt, but they are getting to where they don't hurt as much. I don't know why, not a doctor. And I am definitely getting to where I can run a longer distance without stopping. And so these are all things telling me that I'm getting better at it. And the part just a minute ago where you saw me on the paved trail, that's where I go during the week for my shorter runs. And now I'm on a trail which is, not too far up the road from me. There's trails all over the place, honestly, but this trail is called Black Bear, and the loop, depending on what you look at, if you look on their website, I think it says it's like, I don't know, 7 point something miles long. One time I did it, the app said it was like 7.4 or something like that miles. Another time it said it was 7.8. Another time it said it was 7.1. So I don't know, somewhere between 7 and 8 miles long. Anyways, so I also like to go there, depending on how many miles I'm supposed to do that day. But I believe this trail would be considered pretty technical because of the routes and the ups and the downs that are, that are there because of the way the trees are grown. And as you'll see here in a little bit, a lot of the trails on both sides, you got swamp, definitely swamp on one side, but on the other side it's swamp, then river. So you hear a lot of boats and that kind of stuff going by. So there's definitely parts of this trail I won't even attempt to run. I don't care how good of a runner I become, because honestly, I'm too old. I don't want to trip and bust my face open or tweak my ankle or something like that. And you'll see me in this video. I think every time I go out there, I trip and fall or slip and fall or something like that. And I guess it's just part of it. But it's all good. You trip, you get up, you brush yourself off, and you keep going. I've got a good friend of mine that has definitely got more experience in the running, biking, triathlete world, and he's I'll text with him and tell him what I've done or whatever, and he's given me two things, I guess you can call them pieces of advice, but they're really the same kind of advice, or the same piece of advice, even though it's two different things. But I think he's telling me the same thing. One night I was telling him that whatever I had done, was, I don't know, maybe it was slow or mostly walking or whatever. And he's like, hey, forward is a pace. So as long as you are moving forward, that's all that matters. And I was like, all right. And then another time I was saying, yeah, but I do more of a fat man shuffle as opposed to a run, because honestly that's what I do. I mean, every now and then there's a little bit of an actual jog in there, but yeah, fat man shuffle. That's what I call it. See, there's the swamp over there, and I just showed you the river a second ago. I think I'll show you the river again here in a little bit. See, there's the swamp over there before you get to the river. So I don't think any of this water off to the sides is somewhere you want to take a little dip. There's probably something in there waiting to get you if you do decide to take a dip. But anyways, and when I told him about my fat man shuffle, he said, hey, fat man shuffle is a pace. And I think the point he's trying to get across to me is, as long as you're moving forward, it's a pace. So as long as you're moving towards that goal or towards that finish line, whatever it may be, you're doing good. As long as you're putting one foot in front of the other and not sitting down and not giving up, then you're doing good. When I was still coaching, one of the things I used to tell my kids is fail forward. And I think it's kind of along the same lines, because I used to tell them that all the time. We might lose, but as long as we fail forward, we're doing good. And what I meant by that, as long as we're learning from that mistake. So therefore, in this instance, I would love to be able to go out and run this whole 8-mile loop, but obviously I can't. But as long as we're gaining something from it, as long as we're failing forward and we're continuing to move forward, whether it's in that fat man shuffle or whether it's walking, as long as we're putting one foot in front of the other, then I think we're good. So it's all about perspective, I guess, and we got to keep moving forward. And another thing, that you got to remember, no matter what state you're in, no matter what country you're in, if you're outside, I mean, look at this video right here. I don't care. Yeah, I'm in Florida. We don't have mountains. We don't have valleys. But we've got some freaking beauty. Look at this. This is swamp. You would never think swamp was beautiful. But look around. Look at this. To me, this is beautiful. And I've grown up in this. But this is still freaking awesome. I mean, you got oak trees, you got palm trees, you got cypress, and yeah, it's pretty treacherous too. I mean, here's this guy. That's the pace I hope I can go one day. But anyways, this is pretty freaking awesome. And I mean, how can you be outside and be in this environment and not just be like, wow, this is freaking awesome? So it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter if you're on the paved trails like I was just a little bit ago. It doesn't matter if you're on a sand trail. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're outside, it doesn't matter if you're on a sidewalk. If you're outside in that fresh air, getting one foot in front of the other, dude, then you've got it made. And especially if you're in. And I encourage you, wherever you're at, and I realize that I'm lucky enough to have places like this all over the place where I live, and not everybody is that lucky. But I encourage you that if you are able, once a week, maybe on the weekends, or once a month or whatever, if you're able to get to a place like this where they have trails, do it. One, because it'll work a little different muscle group than what you're used to when you run on pavement. But two, just again, look around. It doesn't matter where you're at, look around. I mean, it helps refresh the soul, rejuvenate, whatever you want to say. And I know on this trail, I see signs of all kinds of wildlife, all kinds of critters. I mean, very rarely do I run across any of them because, I mean, heck, they probably see me all the time. I just don't see them. But there's all kinds of signs of hogs, deer, there's tracks of probably bobcat, there's just all kinds of wildlife out there. In this trip, we'll even show you here when I run across them, I do see a couple of snakes. That's one thing I encourage, is get to know the area that you're at, just in case you run up across them, so like snakes, so you know which ones are venomous and which ones aren't. But sometimes when you're going out, you do, whoops, trip and fall, just like that. That's all right. Get back up, make sure you're not broken or anything, which I wasn't. But I tell you what, the bottom of my foot was in that swamp. So yeah, I almost got a little wet there. Brush yourself off and get going. But again, look at that oak tree right there. How often do you get to see those big old oak trees like that? I mean, come on, that's just freaking awesome. That's God at his finest right there. So yeah, but yeah, definitely know your area a little bit. Again, this is just a big loop, so I don't think you're gonna get lost. Look at that oak tree down across the trail right there. I mean, it's not down, but that's just, again, God at his finest right there, giving you that picture. I mean, that's just awesome. So but again, know your environment that you're going into. Have something to protect yourself with. I don't care if it's mace, I don't care if it's bear spray, I don't care if it's a gun, or at least have a pocket knife of some sort. Have some sort of emergency plan if you get hurt, first aid, that kind of stuff. Be prepared for that kind of stuff. Make sure that you have plenty of water and the food kind of stuff that you're going to need on this specific trip. I always bring water and whatever kind of mix. Me personally, right now, I'm using Heed in my water bottle, and I just put straight up water in my bladder for my hydration pack. But I always bring Cliff Bars, and I'm trying out different energy gels. And then since this was a loop, I did 2 loops this day, or 2 laps, whatever you want to call it. I left a sandwich in a cooler, a couple water bottles, and a soda in my truck. So I stopped at my truck. You guys want to see that because that's kind of boring. But anyways, but just be sure you have everything that you need when you go out, I guess is what I'm saying. And I knew that in this park, I had cell service the whole time. So if something did go seriously wrong, I could call 911 or call somebody to come get me or whatever. So, it was all good. Yeah, but again, if you get out in nature like this, I know that the farther you go, the more wore out you get. I mean, this day, I don't know what the exact temperature was, but it was pretty dang warm, and it was probably, heck, it felt like 200% humidity. I mean, I'm pretty dang good at sweating, so I was drenched anyways. Why are my hands dirty? Because of when I fell. Every time I go to this place, I trip and fall, slip and fall, whatever. So yeah, and that's another thing. Heck, maybe I already said it when I slipped and fell back there, but it's okay if you slip and fall or trip and fall. It happens, especially the older we get. It happens. You know, just get up, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be and pointed the right direction, and keep trucking. That's all you can do. If you are hurt, assess the situation and take it. Oh, there's another fall. See, it happens. Assess the situation. If you are hurt, take care of it. And I do suggest bringing a cell phone. I've even got a one of those battery pack things, a solar charged battery pack or whatever it's called. You can plug it in. Oh, this is a snake. There's the first one, and that one happens to be a water moccasin or cottonmouth or whatever. I should have zoomed in on it so where you can see the Zoromask. That's how you tell the difference between a cottonmouth and a banded water snake. A cottonmouth will have the Zoromask on it. For those of you that remember Zorro always wore that mask across his eyes, and cottonmouths have a Zoromask across their eyes. And so therefore, if you see the snake and it has a Zoromask, leave it alone. Let it go. And honestly, that's what you do with all snakes. Leave them alone. All snakes are good. All snakes serve a purpose, and so let him go. You saw that one. He was in no hurry. I just stayed back a couple of feet, let him go on his way, and that's what he did. So now, granted, if that snake was in my backyard and I've got dogs and grandkids, I'd probably end his life. But it is what it is. So, but out on the trails like this, don't mess with them, man. Just let them go and go on their own way. No need to get a stick and poke at it and try and make it go, because then it's going to get defensive and aggressive, and next thing you know, we've got another superhero on our hands. We got Cottonmouth Man or Moccasin Man or something like that, and we don't need another superhero around here. My kids already tell me I'm a superhero, so we don't need another one out here. So leave them snakes alone. So yeah, that's what we got. That's what we got going on. But definitely know the differences in the snakes in your area. And one of the things I've done is I've made a deal with myself that anytime I come to a little opening like this, I have to run. I have to run across that opening. Now, thankfully, I've never come to a really big opening, so it hasn't been that bad. I don't know what I'm going to do if I ever come to a big field that's, I don't know, hundreds of yards wide or whatever. And I think, that's a good thing, just because it's gonna help you somehow in the long run. You just got to have things like that. Like if you're out in the woods and you say, I don't know, every time that you see, I don't know, a butterfly, you run for the count of 30 or something like that. Or if you just have some sort of, I don't know, you can call it a game or something. If you have some sort of game like that you play with yourself, it's going to help you. Just because it's something you don't have to think about, but it's going to be something that that when this happens, you have to get those feet moving and you're going to run. So, again, it is. Oh, is this the other snake? Yep, there's the other snake. I gotta lower the camera, and there's the other snake. Again, that's a banded water snake. He didn't feel like moving. He does not have the Zoromask, and you can kind of see the bands there. So, yeah. So I just decided, hey, this happened to be right at the trail where there happened to be a split. So I just went back around and went the other side. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. He didn't feel like moving, so I went around. Again, somewhere like this, I don't care what kind of snake it is, I'm just going to leave it there. And there happened to be some folks pretty close behind me, I just said, hey, stay on this right fork because there's a snake right over there. Don't know if they did or not, but yeah. And again, you know, this was right at about mile 11 or 12, and by that time I pretty much hit a wall. So at that point I made a deal where, hey, the only running you're going to be doing is across these little boardwalks. They had dried up by then, so they weren't slick. But shortly after this, I really hit a wall, and all I was doing was walking. And again, walking is a pace. Moving forward is a pace. Well, just got back from my first long distance, call it a run, because after about a mile, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 11, I guess you can say I hit a wall, because I don't know what that was. I know I sweat a lot, so I'm going to look into some potassium, you know, pills, supplements, whatever you want to call them. And you know where I'm at, what's it called, Black Bear Preserve. It's a loop, and the loop is, depending on which app you use, is you know, somewhere between 7.5 and just under 8 miles. Mountain Lightning. And I stopped at the truck and you know, refilled my water and thought about eating the sandwich that I brought, but just wasn't hungry. But if I would have had the potassium pills or some sort of salt, you know, I think that would have helped. Maybe I should have drank this Mountain Lightning, you know, between the loops, and that would have helped, because I still felt good when I started out on lap 2. But like I said, somewhere around mile 10 or 11, just I was done, you know. Feet hurting. That started way before that, but yeah, I was just done. The running devil was he was on me big time, but I kept him at bay. You know, I definitely need to, you know, I've had issues with shoes. I went and bought, you know, two sets of shoes just for training and getting ready for this race. I've had good luck with Hoka's ever since I've been introduced to them, you know, just for everyday use. I was having issues with my feet when I was teaching PE, you know, with my feet just hurting from being on them all day. It's just somebody told me about Hoka's and, you know, told me the place to go, and so I went, and they were freaking awesome. So since then I've done nothing but Hoka's and used the same shoe store. And so before all this started, I went there and, you know, told them what I was getting ready to do, and I told them I was a fan of Hoka, but that didn't mean that I had to, you know, buy Hoka. You know, I trusted their judgment by this time. For however many years, they've never steered me wrong. So, but a pair of Hoka's for the street, and then they only had 2 trail running shoes. And the tread, the lugs on them were definitely lugs. You know, if you think of a tire, you know, a street tire versus a mud tire, the lugs on a mud tire are a lot more aggressive, a lot thicker to help it get traction off-road. Well, I tell you what, first thing this morning I was slipping and sliding all over the place because of how wet it's been. So I will be investing in, I know there's a Hoka trail shoe, so I definitely got to get me a trail shoe that's comfortable. But even today, running in my Hoka street shoes, my feet are killing me. So I don't know what else I need to do, but I got to do something about my feet. Everything else will take care of itself just with time. I think the potassium, get some salt intake, because I'm a sweater. I sweat a lot. So I think everything will take care of itself. But yeah, I don't know. I know that the last 5-6 miles are probably 20-minute miles. But other than that, you know, I feel pretty good about today. The only thing I don't like about coming here is some of these trails got a lot of, I guess they'd be called technical, because there's a lot of ups and downs and roots and stuff like that. Where I typically, I mean, if you watch the raw videos, I typically will trip and twist an ankle and, you know, stuff like that. You know, I'm hesitant to run on that type of terrain, just because of the type of terrain it is. So, you know, that's the only kind of negative about here. But anyways, that's what I got. Well, thanks for coming along for this episode, or whatever you want to call it, of Walking with Weaver. And stay tuned for the next episode of Walking with Weaver.